Hello, my name is Matfaza Shidovi, but most people call me Mati, and this is Mati Talks About. This is a podcast where I'll talk about anything and everything, casually, deeply, personally. Sometimes I'm just chatting with friends, other times I'll be unpacking research and culture, but always I'll be telling stories. I love talking, but more than that, I love stories. Not just the stories in books or Netflix, but the ones passed between people, the ones told over dinner or in boarding school dorm rooms, the ones that shape who we are. This podcast will also serve as an autoethnography, which is just a fancy way of saying it's about how I experience the world as a Zimbabwean Canadian, a student, a woman, and a Shona speaker. This is how I process memory, identity, and curiosity through story. It all started with a loss. When my great grandmother passed, I felt her death most sharply, not in her physical absence, but rather in the absence of her stories. Her memories of colonial displacement, of being moved from our ancestral lands, those weren't written anywhere. They existed only in her telling. And when she died, those stories died too. She was, though I didn't know it then, a Sarangano, a traditional Shona storyteller. In Shona traditions, the Sarangano, which literally translates to the owner of the tale, was a performer. She was a teacher, a philosopher, a moral compass, and an entertainer. She told stories using song, metaphor, dance, and voice. Kennedy Chinyowa writes that the Sarangano didn't just narrate stories, she performed them. She became the animals, the ancestors, the kings, and the tricksters. Her genius was not in owning the story, but in living it. Shona storytelling wasn't just for entertainment, it was a form of education. It taught morality, what behavior the community accepted or rejected. It trained the imaginations. Stories used animals as metaphors for human strengths and flaws. It shaped emotions, offering joy, catharsis, and even soul healing. And it celebrated communal knowledge, reminding us that stories are not individual property, but shared heritage. As Chinyowa reminds us, when the Sarangano finishes her tale, she says, Ndipo pakafira Sarangano. This is where the storyteller dies. She dies to make room for another voice. That is the rhyme of oral tradition. We do not hold stories, we pass them on. In Shona society, stories were told at night, after work, besides the fire. Not just for fun, but because the darkness, firelight, and the stillness helped suspend disbelief. Children and adults would listen, eyes wide, hearts open. In that space, animals spoke, spirits walked, and lessons lingered. Today, in our world of screens and speed, we've lost that firelight. This podcast, for me, is my version of that fire. It is my attempt to bring back a way of being in community with others through stories. I spent most of my school years in boarding schools, where we didn't have much internet or TV, but what we did have were endless hours of talking. We told folklore, ghost stories, love dramas, legends. That was our Netflix. That was our news. Looking back, I see now that those stories told between bunk beds and during night prep were deeply cultural. They weren't just childish, they were ancestral echoes. We were unknowingly continuing the legacy of the Sarangano. This podcast is my way of keeping the storyteller alive. It is a way of making sure my great grandmother's silence doesn't become a permanent void. This is my way of saying we still remember. We still question, we still tell. So, what to expect on my great podcast? Not again, okay. So, what to expect on Mati Talks About? I'll cover everything. Deep dives into African religion and culture, reflections on life as a Zimbabwean in the diaspora, episodes on history, politics, decolonization, ghost stories, funny convos with friends, and even wild takes on my favorite shows. Each episode will be a little different, just like the music that opens it. Thank you for listening. This is just the beginning. Welcome to Mati Talks About, where stories are sacred and every storyteller dies as the next one speaks. Dipo Pakafira Sarangano.